The crash first appeared on camera 12 at exactly 3:12 a.m. It was a rural stretch of Highway 84 outside Millstone County, Colorado. A long, unlit section of road bordered by low fencing and empty fields that turned black after midnight. That highway rarely saw traffic at that hour, maybe a truck every half hour, sometimes nothing at all. The monitoring system flagged it automatically. Sudden deceleration, lateral instability, rollover pattern detected. I was the overnight supervisor in the County Traffic Operations Center, a small concrete building off Route 9 that handled weather alerts, traffic sensors, and 62 highway cameras. Most nights were uneventful. I pulled up camera 12 and watched the replay. A silver sedan entered frame from the eastbound lane. It drifted slightly over the center line, corrected too sharply, fishtailed, clipped the shoulder, then flipped once and rolled twice into the ditch. Dust rose into the air and hung there in the infrared glow. Timestamp 03/12/47. I radioed State Patrol Unit 34 and logged the incident. Unit 34 reached mile marker 117 6 minutes later. His voice came through calm and slightly confused. "Control, I'm on scene. Roadways clear, no vehicle, no debris." I checked the live feed. The ditch was empty. No crushed brush, no disturbed soil, no tire marks. I rewound the footage again. The crash was still there in the recording. Same angle, same rollover, same dust cloud. I verified the camera ID, checked for playback overlay errors, even pulled the adjacent cameras to confirm I hadn't selected archive training footage by mistake. Everything matched real-time data. Unit 34 did a slow roll up and down the shoulder. Nothing. Eventually, we cleared it as a false detection and logged it under sensor malfunction. These systems glitch sometimes, especially during temperature shifts. The next night at 3:12 a.m. it happened again. Same camera, same silver sedan, same drift, same correction, same rollover. The timestamp was identical down to the second, 03/12/47. This time I didn't immediately call it in. I watched carefully. There were subtle details I hadn't noticed before. The right headlight flickered once before the fishtail. The front license plate was bent upward slightly on the left side. When the car rolled, something small flew from the passenger window and vanished into the dark before the vehicle hit the ditch. I paused and zoomed in as much as the system allowed. Resolution wasn't great, but I captured still frames. Then I radioed Unit 34 again. He arrived. Again, nothing, no marks, no car, no debris. By the fourth night, I stopped thinking malfunction. I exported the footage locally instead of relying on server archive. The file saved correctly. Metadata showed real-time capture, no loop indicator, no playback tag. I compared night 1 and night 4 side by side. They were not identical. The car's rear bumper had a deeper scratch in the fourth recording. The passenger side mirror was missing. The right headlight flickered longer before the loss of control. Something was changing. The system clock was synchronized through satellite time, so identical timestamps weren't unusual if something triggered at the same second each night. But vehicles don't deteriorate inside camera loops. On the sixth night, I called Unit 34 before the crash even completed on screen. "Head toward 117 now," I said at 3:12 sharp. He acknowledged. I watched the silver sedan enter frame. It drifted, corrected. The headlight flickered violently this time. As the car rolled, I finally caught the object flying from the passenger side. It wasn't debris. It looked like a phone, spinning once before disappearing into the dark. The sedan landed roof down in the ditch. Dust filled the screen. Unit 34 arrived 2 minutes later because he'd already been en route. "Control, negative crash," he said. His tone had changed. Less confusion, more tension. I switched to camera 11, the one half a mile west. For a split second, I saw something I hadn't before. A pair of headlights in the distance, far beyond the rollover zone, facing the wrong direction. Then they blinked out. I reviewed older traffic logs for that stretch of road. 3 years earlier, there had been a fatal rollover at mile marker 117 involving a silver 2016 sedan. Single occupant. Late 20s. Time of crash. 3:12 a.m. The report stated the vehicle had drifted across the center line before overcorrecting. Right headlight electrical failure was noted as a possible contributing factor. The driver had been pronounced dead at the scene. I pulled the archived still image from the accident file. The front license plate was bent upward slightly on the left side. The seventh night, I didn't radio anyone. I locked the operations room door and dimmed the lights so the monitors were the only illumination. At 3:12 a.m., camera 12 activated without waiting for a motion trigger. The silver sedan entered frame again, but this time it was already damaged before it drifted. The hood was crumpled. The windshield cracked. As it fishtailed, I zoomed in on the driver's side window. For the first time, I could see inside. There was someone in the driver's seat, head tilted at an unnatural angle, face pale in the infrared wash, eyes open. When the vehicle rolled, the body inside did not move naturally with the motion. It lagged slightly behind the physics of the car, as if it weren't fully attached to it. The car landed in the ditch. Dust rose. I switched to live view from camera 11 again. The distant headlights were back, facing eastbound traffic from the shoulder, unmoving. Then slowly they began to approach the rollover site, but no vehicle body was visible behind them. Just two lights gliding forward at road level. My console alarm chimed, not the crash alert. A call coming through the operations line, internal extension. There were only 3 extensions in the building and I was alone. I let it ring twice before answering. There was no voice at first. Just the faint sound of wind moving across a microphone, then tires on gravel, then a weak metallic creaking like a cooling engine block. I didn't speak. I switched my eyes back to camera 12. The headlights without a car had reached the ditch. They stopped directly where the silver sedan had vanished. On screen, something began to rise from the dark edge of the frame, not the car. Something taller. The voice on the phone finally spoke. It was distorted, stretched thin by static. "You didn't send help in time." The line cut to silence. I checked the call log. It showed my own extension as the origin. I went back to the accident report from 3 years ago and opened the full narrative. The responding officer had arrived 9 minutes after dispatch due to road construction detours that night. The driver had still been alive when he reached the vehicle, but died before extraction. The official time of death was 3:21 a.m. At 3:21 a.m. on my live feed, the headlights in the ditch turned off. Camera 12 flickered once. When it came back, the highway was empty. No sedan, no dust. No distant lights, just 2 empty lanes stretching into black farmland. The next morning, I drove out to mile marker 117 before my shift ended. Daylight made it look ordinary. Dry grass. Shallow slope, no sign of disturbance. I stood on the shoulder where the sedan would have drifted. The asphalt was smooth except for faint scoring lines near the center line, almost invisible unless the sun hit them at an angle. They looked old. Like something had once scraped hard across that spot and been partially resurfaced. That night at 3:12 a.m., camera 12 activated again. But this time, there was no silver sedan entering from the east. The highway was already occupied. A patrol cruiser was parked on the shoulder near mile marker 117, lights off. I checked the active unit list. Unit 34 was not assigned to that sector. In fact, he was off shift. The cruiser door on the feed slowly opened. No one stepped out. After a few seconds, the driver's seat appeared empty. The interior dome light flickered on, revealing something in the back seat, a shape leaning forward between the headrests, watching the road. My operations line rang again. Internal extension. I didn't answer. I watched the monitor instead. At exactly 3:21 a.m., the patrol cruiser's headlights turned on by themselves. The vehicle shifted slightly, as if someone had pressed the brake and released it. Then it rolled forward, unoccupied, drifting over the center line. It corrected too sharply. The rear fishtailed. It clipped the shoulder and flipped once before rolling twice into the ditch at mile marker 117. Dust rose into the infrared glow. The system flagged it automatically. Sudden deceleration, rollover pattern detected. I don't normally pick people up on the highway. That night was different mostly because of how empty the road was. It was 1:36 a.m., and I was driving back from an overtime shift about 40 minutes from home. The highway between Millridge and Brook Hollow is mostly forest and farmland. No gas stations, no houses close to the road. Just long stretches of darkness broken by reflectors and the occasional mile marker. I saw her about 10 minutes after passing the last exit. She was standing near the shoulder just before a faded roadside sign, not waving, not pacing, just standing there under the weak spill of my headlights. No broken down car, no hazard lights, no bag at her feet. She looked young, maybe 17 or 18, wearing a light-colored hoodie and jeans. As I passed, I felt that immediate hesitation, the kind where your brain tells you to keep driving. I drove another 100 meters before slowing down. I told myself if she was out there alone at that hour, something was wrong. I reversed carefully along the shoulder and rolled down the passenger window. She stepped closer but didn't smile. Her face looked pale in the headlights, almost gray. "Are you okay?" I asked. "My car stopped," she said quietly, "a few miles back." There was no emotion in her voice, no panic, just flat. "Do you need me to call someone?" She shook her head. "Can you take me toward Brook Hollow? I'll tell you when." I hesitated again. Something about that answer felt incomplete. But she opened the passenger door before I said yes and sat down, closing it gently. She didn't slam it, didn't fumble, just smooth and quiet. I noticed she didn't reach for the seatbelt. I almost reminded her, but I didn't want to make it awkward. I pulled back onto the highway. For the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. I kept expecting her to give an address or at least a landmark. Instead, she just stared forward, not at her phone, not out the window, just straight ahead. The dashboard lights were dim, but I could see her hands resting in her lap, completely still. "Where exactly am I heading?" I asked after about 5 minutes. "I'll tell you," she replied. That was it. The highway felt longer than usual. The trees along the road looked darker somehow, like the light from my headlights wasn't reaching as far as it should. I checked my mirrors out of habit. No cars behind us, no headlights in the distance, just empty road. After maybe 15 minutes, I started to feel uneasy. Brook Hollow wasn't far from where I picked her up. We should have reached the first turnoff by then. "You sure this is the right direction?" I asked. "Yes," she said. Same tone, same volume. A minute later she added, "You passed it." I glanced at her. "Past what?" "My house." I slowed immediately. "You didn't say anything. I thought you knew." There was something about the way she said it that made it hard to argue. I signaled and made a careful U-turn on the empty highway. As I turned the wheel, I finally looked directly at her face. She was looking at me. Not normally, not like a passenger glancing at the driver. Her head was slightly tilted, eyes fixed, unblinking. There was no anger or fear in her expression, just observation, like she was waiting to see what I would do. We drove back toward the exact spot where I had first seen her. My chest felt tight, though I couldn't explain why. The roadside sign appeared again ahead. "Here," she said calmly, "this is fine." "There's nothing here," I replied. "It's fine." I slowed anyway. The shoulder was narrow, no driveway, No path leading into the trees, just dark forest beyond the ditch. She reached for the door handle. I heard it click open. Felt a slight shift in the car as if weight had moved. Then the door closed. I didn't look at her while she stepped out. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to see her walk into the trees. Maybe I just wanted the situation over. I waited 3 seconds before checking the passenger seat. It was empty. I froze for a moment, then looked in the side mirror. The shoulder behind me was clear. No figure walking away. No movement near the trees. My headlights illuminated the same empty stretch of road where I had first seen her standing. I told myself she must have stepped out quickly and moved behind the tree line before I looked. That explanation made sense if I didn't think too hard about it. I drove home the remaining 30 minutes with the radio off. When I pulled into my driveway, the first thing I noticed was the passenger seatbelt. It was still fully retracted, unused. I stared at it for a long time. I was certain she hadn't buckled up, but the belt hadn't moved at all. The seat cushion didn't look compressed either. No wrinkles. No sign someone had been sitting there. I grabbed my phone and opened my dashcam app. I'd installed the camera a year earlier after a minor accident, mostly for insurance protection. It records interior audio and forward road footage automatically when the engine starts. I sat in the driveway and replayed the entire trip from the moment I stopped for her. The video showed my car reversing on the shoulder. It showed my window rolling down. It showed me speaking. "Are you okay?" But in the passenger seat, there was no one. The door on that side never opened. The interior light never turned on. I watched the full 20-minute drive twice. The passenger seat remained empty the entire time. But the audio told a different story. Clear as my own voice, I heard hers. "My car stopped. I'll tell you when. You passed it. This is fine." 2 voices, no second person. I checked the timestamp to make sure it wasn't corrupted footage from an older recording. It was that night. Exact time. 1:36 a.m. I skipped to the moment she supposedly got out. On video, I slowed near the roadside sign. I spoke to no one. Then I said quietly, "Okay." And the audio captured the distinct sound of a passenger door opening and closing. On screen, the door never moved. I sat there in my driveway until nearly 3 a.m., replaying it again and again. There was one more detail I didn't notice until the 4th time watching. About 10 minutes into the drive when I asked, "Where exactly am I heading?" The dashcam briefly adjusted exposure as my headlights hit a reflective sign. For less than a second, something appeared in the passenger seat. Not a full figure, just a faint distortion in the air, like heat rising off pavement. The shape was roughly where her head would have been, and it was facing me. I haven't driven that stretch of highway since. But 3 nights later, when I started my car to go to work, the dashcam powered on automatically like always. The screen flickered for a second before switching to live view. The passenger seat was empty. Then the audio activated. Before I even turned the key fully in the ignition, a quiet voice came through the speaker. "You passed it."